Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Chiro Candy. Today we have with us, all the way from Scotland, is Dan Brown. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Billy. It's good to be on the show.
Yes, we actually met. I knew who you were, but we met here a few months back in London and really just hit it off. And he's got some great things going on. He's got a terrific practice over there in Scotland. And then he also he runs chiropractic jobs online, which we'll get into more in a minute. But tell us a little bit about your background. What got you into chiropractic?
What got me into chiropractic was I met a chiropractor at a careers convention, Dr. Graham White, when I was about 15 years old. And I was just kind of intrigued. He had these really funky pens, and I was kind of intrigued by the pens. But he told me a little bit about chiropractic and, the principles of it. And they just really resonated with me at the time. So I went and observed him in practice, and I just felt that this was exactly where I could be. And I've just kind of decided that's where I was going, and I've never looked back. So I studied at the AECC down in Bournemouth, studied there for 5 years, and then I moved back up to Scotland, and then ended up setting up a practice in Perth. And yeah, I've been there for sort of 10 years now, which has been great.
And one of the things that you do is you kind of, well, I was going to get into some of what we're going to get into with the content. You know what? Let's do that. I kind of know what all we're wanting to cover today, because we actually have the privilege of helping, kind of working with you on the book that you're doing. So let's go through that. What it takes, the 7 steps for building a winning chiropractic team. Let's just get right into that.
Sure. Okay.
So what is step one?
So step one is, I think, getting clear on the business. I think a lot of people are dying to rush ahead with hiring people and trying to grow their business, but they're not really clear on exactly what their business is. So I always reference the book Traction. I think it's great. It's by Gino Wickman,
That's a great
and
book.
it's really, really getting a grip on your business. And the key things are working out what your vision is, where you see your business going, where your 5 year goals are, where your 10 year goals are. Because if you get clear on your destination, the steps to get there become really clear. You really need to understand what your product is, what your core focus is, what you sell, because a lot of people think it's just chiropractic, but it's not just chiropractic. Every chiropractic office is slightly different. So need to get clear on exactly, how you package your services, what you can offer, what you can't offer. And then the key thing I would really be saying is really working out what your values are. Your values are a set of guiding principles that help you make decisions of what is right or wrong for your business. Now, people have personal core values, but your business also has core values. And if you can really understand what your business core values are, it's really going to help you in deciding how you're going to market, how you're going to create systems and procedures within your clinic, how you're going to hire. And that's really where, I think it comes in. So I would say, your first step is really getting clear on the business. Do you want me to go through all the different steps,
Let's
or do you want us to
let,
break
let's
them
talk
down?
about the values a little bit more. And I,
Sure.
I remember, here's what I think of whenever it comes to values. My grandparents raised me for a while, and
Mhm.
if you knew my grandparents later in life, they had accomplished quite a bit. They were successful business owners. They were very involved in the community. My grandmother was involved in was it the junior league, whatever. It's just, this group of women in the community that they lived in. My grandfather used to be president of the Chamber of Commerce, and, all these things. Um, but she used to tell the stories about whenever they first got married. I mean, they lived in a shack. There was holes in the floor where you could see the dirt, and they would have to, roll up newspaper and stuff and stick in these corners. But it's funny hearing those stories and then seeing her later in life, because she just passed away last year, but she always dressed very nice. She got her hair done every Friday. They would go out of town. They would have to find a hotel close to a beauty salon so she could get her hair done. Just very, very meticulous on these things. But I remember her telling me one day, she said, I have nothing against people that are poor. We were poor for a very long time. She goes, my problem is a comb and a bar of soap is very, very inexpensive. So it's okay to be poor. It's not okay to be dirty.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that was in unkept. And that was a value that guided her, in looking at that. Once she said that, it was just another piece of the puzzle to see why she cared so much about how well she looked. And that was just one of her core values. Tying that into
Yeah,
business, you have to
yeah.
know some core values in your business, because just like my grandmother, she would be nice and polite to people, but she's not necessarily going to build these long-term relationships with people that don't kind of share similar values. Same
Sure.
thing in your practice, right?
Absolutely. She's absolutely not going to have friends who don't look after their appearance. She's not going to have friends who, don't share similar values. And I think, as humans, we're attracted to people who are similar to us or resemble us. And I think that's exactly the same because whether they're a collection of friends or a family or your employees, you're looking for people who are like-minded. And I think that's really one of the key things that we really try and get across at Chiropractic Jobs Online is the fact that what we want is not just to get you an associate or just get you an employee. It's you want to get you someone who's like-minded and shares similar values. So, it's like, at Chiropractic Life, which is my chiropractic clinic, we're really clear on what those values are and professionalism, excellence, clinical results. These are big, values for us and everything revolves around that. Now, if you just take clinical results, we do what we call a wellness score, which is from 8 weeks to wellness. But we go through a whole list of biomarkers and we will go through that at the start. And then after 2 or 3 months, we will do another one. And then after another 2 or 3 months or 6 months, we'll do another one. So we're always objecting their biomarkers and seeing what's changed. So we can measure and manage their care based on the fact that we're looking for clinical results. Whereas if we were to then have, for example, a chiropractor who wanted a job, but they didn't believe in doing that. They just wanted to sort of just quickly get down, run the finger down the spine, just adjust, and not really check anything and not really look for that. They would not fit well in our practice. Now, I'm not saying that that's their way is wrong. I'm saying their way is wrong for our core values within our business. And I think the clearer you get on those, the easier it is to spot if someone is in line with that or if they're not. You know, we've quite a few core values, and they do kind of all break down to really the same thing. But professionalism. If someone showed up in my office for an interview and they had purple hair and it was shaved up at the back, and they had tatty trousers and jeans, and they spoke with slang or swore a lot. They're not going to get very far through that interview process because they are not in line with the values that we want to portray in our business. So I think really getting clear on those core values is absolutely paramount. But if you're clear on them, you can spot people whether they're going to be right or wrong really early on than opposed to 6 months or 7 months down the employment stage.
Yes, which is key. So let's go to step number two.
Okay. So I would say the other one is, step number two is when to hire. It's all very well, wanting to hire someone and grow your business, but you really got to work out when you're going to be doing that. And I think a lot of chiropractors see that taking on associate is a simple way of growing the business, increasing their income, and being able to do less. But unless you're bursting at the seams, or you have too many new patients to handle, do you really want to be taking on an associate? Because all you're going to be doing is spreading those new patients between both of you. You need to also ask yourself why you want to take on an associate, because it really depends on your business model. Are you trying to scale your business? Are you trying to give yourself more free time? Are you looking to serve more patients? Are you taking them on because you physically can't handle them? So you really need to get clear on that. And I would say that, a lot of people would end up taking on an associate before they're ready and end up actually paying them for the work that they could be doing themselves and actually decreasing their income and their profit margins at the same time. So it's almost a backward step. But again, going back to why, what are you looking to achieve in 5 and 10 years, which brings back to getting to know your business. Sometimes you've got to make some sacrifices in order to get to the 5-year goal or the 10-year goal. So that's why I think, really having a good idea of your business strategy first is going to help you understand why you want to take someone on and then when to take them on. And it's all about the right time, because you don't want to put yourself under financial stress.
Right. Let's kind of throw a little bit of a curveball in here. Let's address why someone would want to hire. So in other words, not, hey, I want to hire, I want an associate and here's why. What if someone's listening and they've really never thought much about the benefit an associate would bring? Does that make sense? What are some reasons,
Sure.
what are some things that associates can do in the office to help grow the office?
Well, basically, they increase your capacity. So, everything with a business is about capacity. You can't fit 10 ounces into an 8-ounce glass. It's something that the master circle always told me, but the point is you're increasing the number of hands that you've got. So if you are physically at full capacity and you can't handle any more, you can continue growing your business by taking on another set of hands. If you also are working 6 days a week and you want to spend time with your family, and that's actually more important to you and you want to reduce your hours, you can take someone on that can also handle the patients outside of that. A lot of the time, when I was working on my own, it was quite difficult when you went on holiday, because you had two options. You could either hire a locum who doesn't really know your practice, but you get some great locums out there, nothing against it, but they don't really know your practice and you're going to have a drop in revenue. Or you could have a bigger drop in revenue and close it for a week or 2 weeks. So, having an associate there also helps manage that and keep the business going. But again, it comes down to also what your plans are with your business. You could have a spare room in your office, which is literally generating you no money. Now, you could then take on an associate who could either pay you a rent for that room, or you could increase the marketing and the new patients in order to handle that. There's so many different reasons why you would want to do that, but it also depends. I would say it's very different depending on your business strategy, and where you are. The reasons for it will always change.
And I think too, not just from a hands-on patient's standpoint, but they can even go out and be another marketing arm for your practice as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
They can go
No,
do some of
if
the screenings. That's one of the things you and I talked about yesterday is, you have some expectations for your associate to do 24 screenings a year, 2 a month,
yeah,
get them, and that's just one of the expectations that you set, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But that's just something else. So it lightens your load not only in the office, but out in the community as well. Let's go ahead and move on over to number 3.
Okay, so the third one is knowing where to advertise. It's all very well getting clear on the business and then deciding, right, now's the time I want to go and do it. But then where are you going to advertise? And this is probably one of the reasons why I actually set up chiropractic jobs in the first place. But if you go and advertise on one of these big job boards like Indeed.com or Monster, or there's going to be some big ones in the US and Canada and that. But if you go and advertise there, the majority of people on that are not chiropractors. There are literally 120,000 chiropractors or thereabouts in the world. So you're then advertising to millions and millions of people who are not chiropractors. So it's a complete waste of money. So, ultimately being able to target the right demographic is going to be key. Now, you can go to an association and advertise through them. However, they tend not to be actively marketing your jobs, and it's limited to the number of people in that association. So, what we did with Chiro Jobs was we created, a platform specifically for chiropractors where we're building up lists. We're using social media, Google AdWords, various different online channels in order to get your job traction. However, that's that if you are looking for an associate, and I would say that's the one place to go. However, if you're not and you're looking for a CA, I would flip that around. Chiropractic Jobs Online is not where you should be advertising for a CA. You should be going to Indeed.com, because the number of people who are potential CAs out there is a lot higher, and you need to be advertising in your local community. So, you could have anyone who has reception skills or administration skills, or, just as a good kind of, as a people person or something like that. So, there's a huge potential of people in your local area that you want to advertise for there. So I would then go, right, let's go down into, the local job board than opposed to a chiropractic specific one. But understanding your demographic, where they are, and then putting your jobs in the right places is definitely the third step.
Very good. And then on to the next.
So number 4 is going to be how to write a winning job advert. Now, this one's really important because I see this all the time. I see people post adverts out there, and it's literally associate position as the heading. Now, that doesn't look very attractive to me. And then the description is, we are a wellness pediatric practice with a unique opportunity. Send us your CV for more details. Now, for me, that doesn't really get me excited. It doesn't really tell me much about the practice. I might even go, maybe send them an email, but I'm not in any hurry or have no urgency to try and do that. But it's like any kind of marketing and creating avatars. You want something that jumps out and speaks to you. Are you ambitious and looking for a completely life-changing situation? Or are you looking to work on the beach, surf in the afternoon? Are you looking to, get a job in the Rockies where you can ski in the winter, or whatever it may be? But do something that's going to catch someone's attention who would be interested in that. And then in the job description, really go into who you are as a business, what your vision is, what your values are, how you structure your business, and that kind of thing, and really what would be in it for them in order to actually apply for that job. And you're going to get an awful lot more people applying. And the key thing with writing a job is, I've done some videos in the past and I compare it to fishing. The first thing is getting your line in the water if you want to catch a fish. But the second thing is having the right bait. And I would say that your job advert is literally the bait. So, and sometimes you've got to flip the bait a few times until you get what's catching. So I would say, the next stage is really getting to the right advert. Also using things like video is great, using things like photos, because they tell the potential associate an awful lot more about who you are. And that way you're going to actually attract like-minded people for the job.
And we can tell a lot whenever we look at somebody about their personality. A lot of us just kind of have that sense. I don't want to say discernment, but just the way someone smiles, you can kind of tell, okay, he looks like a pretty fun guy. That'd be a neat place to work. Or something like that, or just somebody that you want to hang out with. Well, let's look into this. And compared to somebody that you look at and you're like, I don't know if I can see myself working with this man or woman for the next, few years or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. They say, first impressions do actually count. If someone makes eye contact with you, that's big. How they dress. Do they dress similar to you? Do they dress completely different to you? Are they well presented, or do they not take any notice in their appearance? Do they wear a big flashy watch, or do they, wear no watch? Are their shoes a mess, or are they not? How do they stand? Do they stand with a confident posture or a stoop? Like what kind of things do they speak about? What they will tend to speak about is clearly what is important to them. If they speak about money or cars or whatever, or if they speak about chiropractic all the time, or philosophy, or helping people, or charity, or what, you can get an idea of the type of person they are, and from that you can then work out, is that someone who resonates with me? And that's what building rapport is, I suppose.
Yep, very good. And then let's go into number 5 about the interview process.
Yeah, so I think, this is actually really important, because this is where, I think if someone sends you a CV, for example, they can lie on the CV and put all sorts of stuff, exaggerate the truth, and make it look extremely impressive. And someone who has or should have an extremely impressive CV can make it look pretty boring. So I don't think we should put so much into that, but actually put it into the interactions. And we were talking about this the other day, was having like a group interview process, And I think where you have an awful lot of applicants, maybe not in a chiropractic associate position, but in something like a CA. The last time we advertised for a CA, we had about 100 to 150 applicants. So in that, how do we actually work out who is going to be right for us just from the CVs? So like a group interview process is awesome, because you can invite them all in and you could do a talk about, the business, who you are, where you're going, what you expect from the associate, what the roles are. And then from there, they can then turn around and go, actually, this is what I want. This is for me. Or at that point, they can say, no, thank you. I don't want to go any further with the interview process. You can then take them another stage, and depending on how big, you can set them tasks to see how they handle tasks. But then I would say it then comes down to the interview process and interviewing them on a one-to-one. And I think for me, attitude is probably the most important thing. See, you can teach skills, but you can't teach attitude. So if they have the right attitude and the capacity to learn, then that's what I'm looking for. And I think using the interview process and questions to be able to work out what their attitude is, how they would handle certain situations, and questions, that, simple things like, why are you fit for this office? What is it you think you could bring to this office? What is it things that you can really get an idea of how they think, their attitude towards life, or their attitude towards problems, or their attitude towards people, are all really important things. So having a whole list. So I'm actually hiring a digital marketer at the moment. I've done interviews with them. I've sent them some tasks back and forward. And then the next stage, we're just going to be going out for, well, one of them I'm going out for lunch, the next one I'm going out for dinner. And for that, I want to take them out of the work environment, and I want to see them more in a relaxed environment. I want to see how they handle things. I want to see, what they order, or I want to see, what they kind of talk about at dinner talk or table talk, and it's taking them out of that, formal atmosphere, and I'm going to get an idea of how they are outside there.
I heard just recently, I think it may have been Jack Welch, um,
Mm-hmm.
someone, a big CEO, whenever he would hire people, he would take them to dinner once they got further, far enough along in the interview process, and he would actually pay extra for their meal to be wrong. He wanted their meal to come out with a mistake to see how they handled that situation. How did they interact with the server? Were they rude? Were they understanding? Just to see more about their attitude and personality, which I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's it. You're creating scenarios to see how they handle things, and I think that's absolutely the key thing. And how they actually speak to people. That's extremely important, especially if they're in a customer service role. You know, so yeah, cool.
Yeah, very good. And going back to the group interview process for CAs, I think that's fantastic because it it really creates this environment of scarcity. Okay, here's 50 people, 10 people, whatever it is, in this group interview process, and they know that they're competing for one position.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
almost
I think
wants them to, they want to do it a little bit more. And then especially if you come at it from, look, let me tell you why this probably isn't for you. And you're kind of taking it away, and that's really going to help kind of weed through the ones who really, really want it. So I love that idea in that process.
And what I've done is just talking about that. This digital marketer that we're going to be taking on. I had three really good potential candidates. They all had slightly different skills, but I told them all that, look, I'm really struggling to make a decision here because I've got three really strong candidates with really different qualities. So I really want to go through this a little bit more and find out. And out of that, one of the three dropped out. They said that they'd taken a job elsewhere. So they made my decision an awful lot easier, because now it's down to two. But by putting a little bit of pressure on them, you're going to see who really wants the job or who's just going because it's a job. And I would really want someone who it's much like a relationship. Would you like to be with someone who doesn't really want to be with you, or do you want to be with someone who really wants to be with you?
Right.
You know,
Yeah, or is it someone that's just going to be with you until something better comes along?
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great parallel there. And then what about the actual? Well, I'll let you talk about step six.
Okay, yeah. So
Well,
step
yeah,
six is expert. Yeah, yeah,
sex. Did you say? I heard sex in there somewhere. So go ahead.
yeah. Freudian slip, eh?
Yeah,
So expectation management.
it's this.
So I think this is
It's this the pink shirt that I'm wearing that you get to see, and so okay, go
so
back, go back on track.
So expectation management. So I think this one's absolutely key because if you want to set up a relationship that's going to work moving forward, clearly setting the expectation managements for both sides is really important. And it's literally what we do with a new patient report of finding. What we're saying is, we go through this and we tell them whether we can help or not. We tell them what's going on, but then we tell them what they can expect. So how often they need to come in, what our clinic rules are, that we expect them to be on time and not to miss appointments. And if they miss an appointment, that, they need to give us at least 24 hours. We are expected to be going on for ongoing care or up to a certain period of time, whatever that may be in your office, how much it's going to cost, how they can make payments. And then you also explain what they can expect from you for that, that you're going to be putting in, 100% into actually getting them the results and making sure that you're going to be really looking after them and possibly their family or whatever. But if you set those expectations right, you create the foundation for a great relationship. If those foundations aren't right, it's never going to move in the right direction. But I think that's exactly the same when it comes to staff. If you can say, exactly what you're going to be offering, whether that's going to be training, whether that's going to be bonuses, whether you're going to give them health insurance, or whether you're going to give them, a car or, like a company car or whatever the bonuses or the things, I'll be paying you every 4 weeks or I'll be paying you every month or you'll be doing this. What are your bonus structures? And that's another point that we'll go into in a wee bit. But, what you can expect from me equally what I expect from you. And what I expect from you is, to be on time, show up enthusiastic, do everything possible for the patients and their care and making sure that they're getting the results. I expect 24 screenings a year. I expect them to do their fair share of in-house talks and external events and clearly define exactly how many that is, because then the clearer it is, the easier it is for them to know whether they're on point or whether they're not. Exactly how many patients they need to be seeing before it triggers a bonus, if that's the way you do it, or exactly what they need to be doing in order to trigger a pay rise or whatever. Now, I've had an associate in the past where I took them on and I wasn't really ready to take them on. So I said, yeah, let's go for it. Let's see how it goes. And, I said, based on what they were telling me, I said, I expect to see you get a pay rise, shortly. And then after about 5 or 6 months, they approached me and said, why didn't, am I getting a pay rise? And I said, well, let me have a look at the numbers. So I crunched the numbers and I was like, well, unfortunately, you haven't seen enough patients in order to warrant a pay rise. And they said, well, you promised me a pay rise shortly. And I said, I didn't promise you that. I said, I would expect you to have one based on what you've been telling me. But what you've done is not comparable to what you've told me. So there was a big sort of miscommunication there. Now, I would say the fault is primarily mine because I didn't clearly explain what their expectations were, what they needed to do in order to trigger a pay rise. And that's absolutely my fault and something I've learned from. And it's probably the only time that I've ever done it, or ever not clearly defined the expectations. But again, goes back to my point too. Was I ready to hire in the first place? And I wasn't ready to hire. I wasn't at a point where my business was bursting at the seams, and I didn't have enough time we were struggling to handle new patients, but we weren't struggling for adjusting capacity. So we could have moved things around. So, again, it goes back to point two. I probably shouldn't have hired them in the first place because we weren't ready. But clearly going through the expectations is, I think, absolutely key. And the benefit of that as well comes to when you come to do the reviews. You can sit down with that sheet of all the expectations clearly marked out, and you can ask them to critique themselves. How would you mark yourself out 10 for showing up in time, enthusiastic, and, presentable, 10 out of 10. How would you mark yourself on the number of screenings you did? Okay, you did over the 24. Awesome. How would you mark yourself on this? And then they pretty much mark themselves, and then you're going to find that you're both going to be on the same page, and there's not going to be any uncomfortable sort of interactions there, whether you say like you haven't hit what I've expected. But equally, that also takes time from the business owner or the manager, whoever is going to be hiring, to sit down and clearly work out the roles and responsibilities that that person's expected to do. And I honestly think if you do that, that is the key to creating a fulfilling working relationship. Everyone knowing where they are, everyone being on the same page.
Right. Yeah, you had mentioned that the other day when we were talking about the example whenever you recently did the review with your associate. How do
Yeah,
you feel you did here? I feel I did great. You know what? I agree. I think you did do great. How do you think you did on the screenings? I think I did great. Well, did you do 24? Well, no. You did 17, and you never said, "Hey, I'm struggling with this" or whatever. But it was clearly defined. And I think another thing that's great on using that during the review is it reiterates that these are clearly the expectations and they will be enforced. Not, "Hey,
sure.
I hope this is what you do," and then never go back to it. But being able to bring those back to the forefront and say, "Okay, here is our set of principles that are going to guide us. How are we? Where do we need to course correct and improve?" That's a great
Sure.
idea.
And also, yeah, like also to add back into that, one of the things that I loved about that book Traction was it said to actually sort of mark or to review your staff based on your business core values. So say professionalism, excellence, clinical results, leadership, self-development, these are your core values. I would also ask them to mark themselves out of 10 on each of those, and then say, where do you think you are with this? Where do you think you are with this? Where do you think you are? And then it's like, are they really in line with what we're trying to do and what we find seem or have important within the business? And I think adding that into it's also a really good thing to do as well. So there's loads of amazing things that when you start looking into all of this and how it all interconnects, and it gets pretty good.
Let's go into to actually creating a pay structure, which would be step
Sure.
7.
Yeah, so step 7, which is the pay structure. So there's so many different ways to do that. And I think you also need to work out what's important for your business. You also have, in the UK, we have self-employed or employed. And I think in the US, it's an independent contractor or a contractor. Is that right?
Or you still have employee. They can still be an employee, right?
Yeah, so
Or
employee,
independent
contractor.
contractor, right?
Yeah, so you've got to work out the difference. And I would say, when I first started, one of the things that I didn't want to do was take on the risk of employing someone, because if they don't work out, getting rid of them becomes a little bit more difficult. You've got pensions, which you have to pay now. You've got employment contributions, so tax. You've got holiday pay. You've got all these kind of extras that you need to be paying. So I didn't want that kind of responsibility. So I had independent contractors or self-employed people, and they were given a percentage of what they did. Now, that worked fine at the time, but if it got really difficult, I would say, to motivate them in the right way or get them to do the work that you were wanting to do, because, at the end of the day, they're getting paid for what they see. Now, if they have an hour off, you can't then ask them to go and do some filing or go and work on the purging or go and do something else, because that's not what they're paid to do. They're paid to as a percentage of the number of patients they see. So we moved over to an employment option, and it means that you're paying them for their time. So within that time, you can ask them to do really what you want. But I also feel as though that everything needs to be a win-win, and it's about no one wants to work for you for nothing or for less than their worth. And equally, no one wants to hire someone and overpay them. So it's about finding that balance of the more you make, the more we make, and also rewarding them. So that can be done through bonuses. That can be done through, a progressive pay structure where, at each review they may get a pay rise. It can be done through all sorts of different ways. But I think it's really important to work out how to create that win-win, because that's also going to be the key to sort of keeping someone on board there. One of the things we're looking at is, bonusing our team based on growth. So we worked out the average sort of turnover for each month, averaging last year. And then what will happen is each quarter, for any growth on that, a percentage of that will then be split by the team. And that's a great way, because what we're looking to do is grow. And that's rewarding them for the right thing. Instead of just giving them a profit share, we're looking for a share of the growth. And the way I see that is that would be a percentage of something we didn't have before. And we're getting to a point where our overheads aren't massively increasing. They will increase slightly, but not massively increasing. So we can afford to do that. So it's working out different ways that are going to reward people in the right way. And it's kind of like, I would say dangling that carrot, and getting them to work in line with what you're looking to do.
I think that's great too, dividing it over the whole team, not just with the associate, but with, the office manager, the CAs, or what have you.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, I think your CAs are extremely important. They're the ones who are going to follow up calling a patient. If you don't close a patient at that present moment at the report, then it comes down to the CAs to call them up and get them in. It comes down to the CAs to get them booked in for the health talk if you do that. It comes down to the speed that your CAs are going to book in a screening or a new patient, how tardy they are with you're responding to emails, or how quickly they are responding to emails or messenger. It comes down to if you haven't seen patients in a while, doing a purge. We call it a purge, where we're just calling up patients that we haven't seen for a bit and finding out how they're doing and showing that we genuinely care. But 9 times out of 10 they'll then book an appointment. But if your CAs aren't motivated to do that, this is a huge portion of your business that's going to be affected. Equally, we also have massage therapists and personal trainers in our business. And it's about them sort of recommending that if someone's coming in for a massage only and they haven't had a wellness score or haven't had a chiropractic exam, it's about them recommending that they come in for a screening, or they come in for the health talk, or they come in for an exam. And it's about everyone clubbing together. And also, when we go and do external events, I want all of my team there. And I want them to get involved in speaking to people about the business and recommending they come in and booking them for screenings and all that kind of stuff. So it gets everyone working on the same page, and they're getting rewarded for exactly the same things.
So tell us about Chiropractic Jobs Online. Where did that originate?
Well, Chiropractic Jobs Online really originated from my own frustrations of trying to find an associate. I kind of felt isolated when I was practicing in Perth in Scotland, and I was just working on my own. And trying to find an associate was difficult. And as I touched on before, my options were to advertise in the Scottish Chiropractic Association, United Chiropractic Association, British Chiropractic Association, McTimney, and they're the 4 associations in the UK. So I had 4 different adverts that I was paying for. Equally, they were just kind of put into a magazine, or they were, hidden on the website somewhere. So people weren't really seeing the jobs, and it took months and months and months to even get some applicants. And then I started advertising on things like Indeed.com, Gumtree, and various different things. And, I was just obviously barking up the wrong tree, because I wasn't advertising to the right demographic. Now, I was also, I remembered when I was a student as well, also struggling to know where I could find jobs. And when I was at it was a seminar, it was a Gonstead seminar I was at, and I was speaking to the students that were there, and they said they didn't really know where to go. So what I did was, after that weekend, I went and I set up a Facebook page, and it was just Chiropractic Jobs UK or something like that. And it was just basically for people looking for associates. They could post their jobs on there for free, and people could then sort of contact them through that. Within a short space of time, we really grew pretty quickly to 2,000 or 3,000 people, and there was tons of jobs going up. So I thought, right, I need to take it a step further, and I invested quite a lot of money into making a website. So I made the website, and then since then, it's kind of grown arms and legs. We went from just the UK to Europe, and then to global. And what I wanted to do was create one global platform that all chiropractors around the world could go post their jobs, and all chiropractors around the world could go to find jobs. It costs nothing to find and apply jobs for jobs, and there's a charge for the jobs that you post. Now we have three different packages: bronze, silver, gold. And then on top of just being a job board, we will then actively go and market those. So they'll go into newsletters, they'll go into onto our Facebook page, they'll be boosted on Facebook. We'll have sponsored adverts, we'll have Google AdWords, various different channels online in order to get your job more traction than simply just posting it on the job board. But we now have about 6,500 unique views a month on the website. We've also improved it to also list practices for sale. I think we've got well over 100 practices for sale on the website, and also list yourself as a locum. So if you are someone who works on their own and is looking for someone to cover, you can have a look through there and see which locums are on the website. Now, one of the cool things we've done is we limit the amount of time that jobs can be on there. So a job is renewed every 30 days, practice sale every 90 days, and locums every 30 days. So everything that's up there is fresh. You can see a lot of these sites that, have got stuff there, but it's been posted like 2 years ago and it's just been left up there. So everything is quite dynamic and it's constantly changing, which I think, is absolutely, the key thing to it.
That's fantastic. So if you're interested, we definitely recommend going over it. You can actually use my affiliate link, which is chirocandy.com/Chiro jobs. And that'll take you straight there where you can find out more information if you have any jobs you want to post, or if you're just looking to see what jobs are available out there. Dan Brown, thank you so much for being on today. Other than chiropractic jobs online, where else can people reach out to you if they have questions or just want to find out more about what you do or what have you?
Well, the easiest way would just be to email me at hello@chiropracticjobsonline.com. Otherwise, add me on Facebook. Just Dan Brown. I'm sure you'll find me there. You can message me. And yeah, I'm always here to answer questions. I'm always here to connect. Yeah, I think that would be the easiest way.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Cheers, buddy. It was great. Thank you.